So thanks everybody for coming tonight. This is the Wasabi Ventures State of the Stables. This is something we've done. I think this is our third State of the Stables that we've done, or at least on an annual basis. Our plan is that we do them every 6 months and sort of do an update like we just like you saw, and the one that we post in January is meant to look backwards and then also look forwards. So and talk a little bit about what we did, what worked, what didn't work. We try to be, as honest with ourselves as we can about what we tried to do and what happened and what didn't happen. Plus, give you a real insight going forward. Honestly, I don't know of another organization in racing that probably writes and takes the time to be as thorough about their plans and what they're going to do and share it with everyone as we do in our State of the Stables. It's hopefully you appreciate that and getting real insight to sort of how we think about the business and all aspects of it. So tonight, how it's going to work, like I said, we're recording tonight. If you have questions, feel free to use the chat function below. Once again, all of you are muted, just to kind of hold down all the background noise. Feel free to use the chat function at any point. I'm sure Michelle will, give me a tap if I don't see it. And we'll try to answer it. I'm going to go through and hit a bunch of highlights. George and Michelle are both here and to answer questions and chime in on anything that I don't amplify correctly, which will probably be a lot. But I'll try to be as useful as I can before I let them jump in and fix anything I do wrong. So I wanted to start with, and I'm a handicapper, and for those of you who don't know that and don't follow along those things, and sometimes when you handicap, you take a horse and you just draw a line through their last race because shit happens, right? And you look and say, well, this horse was doing really well and something happened last race. We're just going to draw a line through that race and then look at the rest of it. I kind of, when I was thinking about 2020, I'm going to use 2020 as a draw a line through it race, except for it's a whole year. I'm sure a lot of us want to think about 2020 as a year that we could just draw a line through and we can move forward. We had a lot of plans that we were thinking of with the stables to do in 2020, and I would say, as I was looking back, a good 40% of those we had to just put on hold, or scuttle, or move them forward a year. So a lot of the stuff that you're going to see and that you see in the stables, State of the Stables plan. Some of that stuff was in the 2020 plan, and we just pushed it because COVID really upended the world. I tried to do an estimate today, and I think by my estimate, we lost 36% of the starts that we were probably going to get. Just they didn't happen because so many tracks were closed and the like. And even of the starts that we had in the middle of the year, so many of them were at the wrong track. Against horses we would have never run against, and it was just hard on the racing side to go anywhere near trying to accomplish what we were going to try to accomplish in 2020. We totally scaled back anything we thought about claiming in Oaklawn. It just didn't make a lot of sense to take on the expense and the burn with so many things happening in the world. So I'm drawing a line through 2020 and I'm moving forward. But a few things I just wanted to talk about. We did get our very first win at Churchill Downs. Jason Barkley had a starter for us, and we got a nice win there. It was a really nice win as well. So that was nice. The club continues to grow. Michelle wrote about a lot of that in her sections. Obviously, for those that participated in Force the Pass, financially, it was a really good year for you. We had a really great return on Force the Pass in a 12-month period, and we still got a chance to make some money off of that in the months to come. It was really a massive win for the breeding side of our operation, and we had big plans to be in Canterbury last year. We wound up only sending one horse because of the COVID situation. It's going to expand this year, as you'll read further. We had our first intern with Lauren Floyd, who's on the line today, and we've got our second intern this year with Paul Devine. So, and we partnered with Franklin Avenue. We may do some of that more. Going forward, especially as we try to step up and do more expensive horses or situations that give us an opportunity to take bigger risks. You may see us, but it's got to be the right group. And luckily, we know the Franklin Avenue people really well, and that helps us. And obviously, we've made a big commitment to aftercare and the backside sort of learning initiatives that we've done. And Michelle writes about those forward and talks a little bit about some of her plans. I want to jump into some guiding principles because a couple of these really need emphasis. There are people, there are even people on the line I know who've talked to me and said, I don't understand why you do the breeding side of the business. It's so different than the racing. And it is. It's completely different than the racing. But it also is one of those things that really sets us apart. It is also the one aspect of racing where you can really think about it as a business. And we've proven that over and over so far, or at least over and over twice. We just had the Army Mule colt sell at auction at what's going to be a really great return for those that participated in that. The breeding side is a business, but it feeds the racing side. And we want to build something that's generational. And to do that, you almost always have to cover the game end to end, which is what we're trying to do. But it's a business, and we run it like a business, and we really think of the breeding side as a business. Hence, we launched the venture style fund for breeding assets, which is going to expand in 2021. The next one is something I want to talk about a little bit more. We're completely eliminating our participation in 2-year-old sales. I talk about the why there. The net is until the industry decides that it wants to change the way that it does 2-year-old sales, until it can have more transparency, until it treats the animals in a way that they should be treated, and does that in a universal fashion at 2-year-old sales, we're not going to participate. Just zero participation from us on 2-year-old sales. Doesn't mean everybody that participates in a 2-year-old sale is bad. It doesn't even mean that everybody's a criminal who's doing it, or that they're not thinking of the animals, because there are definitely people who do. But as a whole, I just can't do it, and we're not going to do it. And so we really don't need to anymore between our yearling approach with homebreds, the occasional pick up a yearling at a sale, and our claiming operation. There's really no need to participate, and we're not going to. Continuing to improve the equality across the board. We're really at all turns looking to sort of slowly turn the dial. It's not a fast turn. We're not going to run out and all of a sudden be, buying $250,000 yearlings. That's not what we're going to do. We'll never be that. It's a slow turn of the dial. We're going back to claiming. In many ways, we never left it. COVID just changed it. But we started off as a claiming operation. I personally love the claiming process. I don't necessarily love the claiming industry, or what it does to the industry all the time. There are things I would want to change about it. But from a process standpoint, or from a operational standpoint with us, we've been very, very, very successful when we've claimed. That statistics are really, really quite good. on us as a claiming operation. And you know, you just have to look at our barn right now and some of the ones that we picked up at Monmouth and how they've done. And you're going to see more of that. And obviously, with Oaklawn kicking up, we're gonna drop on 2 on Friday, or at least 1 for sure, but probably 2 on Friday. We're looking at 1 at Charlestown tomorrow. You know, it's going to be a pretty steady drumbeat where the claiming game is in for us. The focus on, I'm a big metrics guy. I believe if you don't measure it, it doesn't happen. And it sure the heck isn't going to improve. And the key metric for us on the racing side is getting to $4,000 per start. We're off to a pretty good start, you know, notwithstanding Luna not helping tonight. But, you know, but we're off to a pretty good start trying to get to that $4,000 per start in 2021. That's the goal. And we believe travel and entertainment, this is more of a macroeconomic story, but we believe travel and entertainment are going to explode, and we're going to try to capitalize on some of that by some new offerings around travel and entertainment connected to the equine world. And so you're going to hear some more about some of that. You can read about some of that as well in the document. Let's talk about goals, get down to some numbers. I want to hit 35 wins and $7,000 in purse money across all of our location, that $4,000 per start. I want to hit the board in a stakes race that's not a Maryland Million Day race. Obviously, I'd like to hit the board on a win on a Maryland Million Day. You'll see that below. 3 wins at Oaklawn, 5 wins at Monmouth, and 5 wins at Canterbury are our goals this year. So lots of wins at some of the tracks that we're focusing on. 250 new members. I think we're going to hit that pretty easily if the our partnership with Canterbury is fruitful, which it sounds like it's going to be. We're going to raise hopefully a $500,000 second fund for WV Stallions and really start to make that a interesting offering. And then $75,000 in revenue from the breeding operations. I'm sure George is sitting over there probably laughing already because we got $95,000 in our very first sale. So we've already hit the goal. The breeding side of the shop's just going to close up for the rest of the year. I'm pretty sure that's the story, right, George? Yeah. So anyway, that's the story. Let me jump into a couple questions real quick here. Says Scott, no, I'm not. There is no PowerPoint. I'm just talking. I'm working through the document that was shared. So if you've got the document, there's no screen sharing happening right now. Let's see here. Let me jump back up. Like Marginal Records do as a brood mare. Yeah, sure. There's a cornucopia of unraced brood mares that actually produce great offspring. It's more of a story there that you have to look at the family. And once again, we breed in some ways from a commercial perspective. So a lot of that is focused on what we're going to do to make our offspring look commercially interesting. But yeah, so marginal racing records, all you got to do is look at amazing racing records like a Zenyatta, and you'll see that is really not much indicator that you're going to get much either. So it's a little more, there are more variables than what the race record was that's important. Not that race record doesn't contribute. How much participate in yearling or weanling sales? We'll be participating in some yearling sales. Weanlings probably not so much. I can't say zero, but probably not a focus. It's just way too long. The holding costs for a weanling don't usually make a lot of sense. So it takes too long to get them to the races, and candidly, too many bad things can happen. And the price delta between a weanling and a yearling isn't enough to make it worthwhile in most cases. Once again, everything's in most cases. Why not at Delaware Park? Honestly, the racing at Delaware Park is not very good. And the purses on a comparable basis are probably not the greatest. The other thing is that you have to have the right Delaware Park sets up for a specific type of barn, and it's probably a cut or so below. The other thing is, if you want to talk about races not going, Delaware Park cancels entire cards because they can't fill their cards. I think they did that 4 times last year. So Delaware Park is I love the park. If you told me I could own any park in the United States, I would buy Delaware Park and do it the right way. But Delaware Park in its racing form is not somewhere necessarily where you can base yourself anymore. I think they canceled, like I said, I think they canceled 4 entire cards last year because they couldn't fill the races. So, okay, I think I caught up on questions. Let me jump in a little bit. I don't know if, Michelle, if you want to talk just like, 2 minutes about community and aspects of the community at all. Oh, I got to unmute her, I think. She didn't know I was going to call on her.
No, I want to put my head down in the back row here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Well, I wasn't prepared to say anything, so I don't really want to have to just read to you, but I do have my goals out here. So I think my main goal is to keep the high level of interaction that we had in the past year. The fortunate part of COVID is that we found a lot more ways to connect online. Before COVID, we never did watching the WBS races, and it really makes sense. I'm sorry I didn't think of it sooner, because we are all over the country, but we're all rooting for a horse running in Pennsylvania or Virginia or wherever it may be. And so I think we find a silver lining. It's that it's found new ways to connect. Some of the things that I'll be doing this year are the same. We'll stay with watching the races. Next month, we're going to have our first Win Day celebration in February, celebrating the win by Slick William back in 2017. So our 4th annual celebration. TK really surprised me here. I probably going to try to do more online things, especially where it seems that we're going to all be staying home for a little bit longer, to do more celebrations. Like we did the holiday gathering and the happy birthday Eve party. It's just a fun way for us to connect and do things. Probably more contests along the line of like the first full contest that we just held. It's such a simple thing, but it seems to bring a lot of joy to people in our club to be involved. And it really doesn't take a lot of time on my end to put these things together. And in the aftercare part, I have a really big plan, but I'm not ready to share it yet, on the off chance that I cannot pull it off. But I am looking to make our efforts for aftercare even stronger this year. For me, the foals and the aftercare, the beginning and the end, are the 2 most exciting parts for me. Yes, I love racing and I love watching the animals, but at the end of the day, it's about the creature. And so I want the stables to have the best aftercare program for any syndicate. Based on the research I've done, we've got to be up there. Even though it's not crazy big dollars we're raising, I can't find any other syndicate that promotes the money that they put into into retiring their horses like we do. And I really want to take this to another level and make us noteworthy for this. So hopefully in the coming month, I'm going to have more details to share. And I think it's going to be an exciting thing for us. And it's something that I'm going to run with on my own, my own little side project, to make sure all of our horses really well cared for throughout their life. And I guess that's about it. I'm not going to ramble because that's what I'm about to do. So I will be muted and sit and watch.
Thanks, Michelle. I put her on the spot and I promised her I wasn't even going to call on her. And then I realized after I called on her, I had called on her. So, yeah. So, at least she was fully clothed. So you got that going. So anyhow, there was a question from Laura about name submission for 2-year-olds. We usually do the naming process. I think we do it probably once they get to the track. you'll see that. So probably in the next, for the first batch which is a good update for everyone. The 2-year-olds that we have who are just turned 2-year-olds who are currently at Middleburg, all of those will be heading to, not all of those, 4 of the 6, I think, are heading to the track and will go to Jesse sometime in the middle of February is when you would expect them. So we'll probably start the naming process. Michelle, start the naming process then. So you'll see some of that coming and announcements about that. Dial Tony will head to Kentucky in the middle of February as well, middle to end of February. So also is on track. So for sure coming up. So that's all coming. So from a naming standpoint, I would think probably, February, the game will start getting kicked off on naming. I promised George I also wouldn't call on him, so I won't call on George. I'll highlight just one thing because it is we bought 2 broodmares today. For those that didn't see that or don't participate on the breeding side or are not paying, or that's not something they pay attention to, we picked up 2. We bought one privately, and we bought one at auction at OBS. And the one that we purchased at OBS is in foal and is really in foal. She's literally due any second. She could have a baby. She could have a foal on the ground any second here. So we moved her from the auction grounds in Ocala at OBS to Adam Parker's farm. Adam, is part of our team, and his farm is literally like 6 miles from the OBS sales grounds to there. So that way we didn't have to move the mare very far. It's on the grounds there, ready to be born. Will be a Florida bred, and it's a brethren, so it's a Florida sired foal. We will be offering this via our individual foal offering for a variety of reasons, and this is the piece that I wanted to hit on. Individual mares, the individual mare selling process, and honestly, the expense tracking process, or not the expense tracking process, but the expense sharing process of sending out invoices to club members and having them pay on a quarterly basis. It's a massive headache is the short answer. The number of, sadly, club members that decide that they're just not going to pay the bills and skip town has been growing. And it's just not something I'm really feel like dealing with. And Michelle, who took over all of that, definitely doesn't want to deal with it. And honestly, the individual foal offering is much cleaner, much simpler. There's no ongoing bills. There's no future risk. And almost, unless something goes wrong, there's a very good chance you're getting money back the way we run it on each individual one, for sure. So anyway, all of our future breeding offerings, all of our future broodmare / breeding offerings are going to be individual foals. So that's for sure the case. And like I said, I think it's better for the club members. And it's also better for for us as well. So anyway, that's just so that one, back on track a little bit. That first one will be available. That is going to be our very first individual foal offering of 2021. I'm expecting to have it up next week, and you'll be able to buy in. It's going to be a very economical purchase to buy in. I don't have the exact dollar figure yet. I'm still working on the numbers a little bit to get it right, because we have to do estimates for the whole sort of year for this one. But because we're catching this foal so late in the cycle, it's really not as many months that you have to support the foal and the broodmare package. So it's going to be and because we're not paying anything for the stallion because it was already baked into the price we purchased it for. So it's going to be incredibly economical to be a part of this one for sure. So and it's one I'm kind of excited about as well. It's from a stallion that's kind of exciting. And if you're going to breed to a Florida-based stallion, it's definitely one or two that you're going to breed to. Throws good runners, throws precocious runners too, which is good. And getting it so late in the cycle on a maiden mare too. So this is a mare that we've already got plans for the next foaling. And the next mating as well. It's going to head to Kentucky and then end up in Maryland in a big cycle, big circle of life there coming up. So, but that's all part of the process that we've got cooked up on that one. The other one is a right off the track. It's a horse that just ran about a week ago, bowed its tendon, and we were able to get it for a very low price. It comes from a very deep family, is a very good cross for some of the possibilities of stallions that we own. And so that's what gets us excited about both of them. And like I said, you're going to learn more about both of them over the next couple of weeks as we start to put them up. The other thing I want to talk about on the breeding side, because it is unique, is the fund. This is truly, as far as I know, the first time in the history of the thoroughbred world where a true breeding fund has been created. There have been other funds in the history of racing, but to do it just on the breeding side and to do it with stallion assets as the primary focus is pretty unique. And we think we've got a chance to really produce something that can produce actual returns. It's an investment grade offering of an alternative asset. Even we've established it with the SEC and done all the filings that we need to do with that as well. So it's all really an investment grade offering. So it's a very unique offering that we're doing there as well. The last thing I was going to talk about tonight, I hit on it a little bit, is that through the year, I think you're going to see us start to offer some travel and entertainment thoughts and packages. This will probably be an early beta test on some of this. We've got some really big plans over the next couple years. And this will be the first year. We were going to do it last year, but obviously COVID, put a nix on anything where travel was the focus. But this year, we're hoping to put together some travel packages and some thoughts around that. That'll be really interesting for club members. Any questions about the state of the stables document or anything that I didn't cover that was in there? I glossed over a few things, figuring people would have read that. Jason asks about the Lap of Luxury story progress. Yeah, I put that in Slack yesterday. Lap of Luxury was a horse that actually we purchased from George. This was a George homebred. And we purchased it from George. And when we got it to the training track, we had the horse had its knees were a little off. It wasn't a little offset. They were a lot offset. And the vets that we had look at him, Zoe, Jesse, really the consensus was, who knows how this is going to turn out. And so we decided, and we had already put it on the site. We had already had 2 graduates take 20% of it. We had sold the horse out. It was in training. And I made the call to give everybody their money back, basically. I didn't feel comfortable doing that for sure. Taking money on a horse that I knew was going to have could have some issues, but the horse had to keep going through training. No one adopts unbroken horses. You can't. There's nothing you can do with them. And once again, she was physically fine from it wasn't like she was in pain or something. Obviously we wouldn't do anything, but it was just looked like it was she might never get to be a racehorse. The vets that we spoke to, we had two different ones come in to make sure we got a second opinion. Both said the same thing. Just train her, just train her like all the others. If she comes up with a problem, just stop on her. Get her as far as you can and let her tell you how she's doing. And, she might semi-grow out of this. She's never going to have perfect knees, but, as Jesse always says, they're perfect in their imperfections. So we stuck with her, and we meaning Wasabi proper, us, me, did all of that, paid all the prices for it. We picked up the bills and have just been training her. And she breezed the other day, and she did really well. She came back out of it fine. Her knees still aren't going to win any beauty pageant, but she gets around and she doesn't have any pain and she's doing well. So we're going to keep going on with her until she tells us we can't go on with her. As far as when I will offer it to the club, I'm not going to offer her to the club until I see her breeze at the track and she can get a half a mile in. So we've got a little ways to go there. I would think we're a couple months out until she'll sort of get to that point. If she can get all the way to that point, then we'll put her up for sale and people can jump back in on her. But I'm not going to let anybody risk any capital besides me until then, is the short answer. So that's the story on it. It was just a really heightened precaution. Really, the precaution was more for you guys than anything else. We were always going to protect the horse, but I wanted to protect any of you that participated. Chris Brown asked, have I given up on Maryland racing? No, not at all, actually. Really, Maryland racing, we're obviously our Mid-Atlantic operations right now are at Charlestown. We have a couple Maryland breds. Maryland racing only really makes sense if you got Maryland breds. We have a couple Maryland breds, but getting those couple Maryland breds, both of which are better as turf horses at this point, and it's not turf season, getting them to run at the bottom is probably not going to be really successful in Maryland. So I'm going to keep them at Charlestown. So the competition in Maryland for the purse levels in Maryland only work if you're running Maryland breds for the bonus money. And if you don't have those, there's no point in running in Maryland when I can run against lesser competition at Charlestown. And for purse money, that's 85% for the exact same levels. So definitely have not given up on Maryland in any way. Obviously, the lion's share of our breeding operations are there. And that's going to stay the case. So for sure. But you'll still see us. We ran a horse there a couple weeks ago, and we'll still ship in when we need to. And when turf season comes back around, you'll see us a lot more there for sure. And honestly, you'll see us there a lot more as some of our babies get online, and it's time to race 2-year-olds because they're all Maryland bred. So you're going to see us there. Any upcoming claiming at Penn? I wouldn't want to hold my breath, Alan, is what I would tell you. There's just not much to claim it at. It's sort of like claiming at Charlestown. Sure, we do it every once in a while, but it's not a very often thing. Mark will call me every once in a while and say, I got one for you. But it's not something we're going to do. It's not the stock that you're going to want to claim, by and large. Next Stallion Fund. Great question, Holly. We should probably have that up and available for opening, I would think by the end of March, beginning of April, when you'll see the next fund open up and you can start to fund it. The real thought there is an annual fund. This year, almost everyone that participated was related to the club. I think you're going to see in 2021, I'm going to be drawing in quite a few people who are not not there. Are not racing people. You're going to see people coming in thinking of this as an asset class that they can invest in. That's the goal. Grad program, Carolyn asked. Probably when we have yearlings, the grad program, although, we may, we're probably going to be expanding the grad program to also include broodmares. So that that's the one way you'll be able to get a part of a broodmare is to be a grad and, sort of step up to that level. But the next batch, when we do yearlings, which is usually June, July, when the next batch of yearlings come through. Laura, the goal is 70,000 in purses. That's money to us. It's not so that's the way to think of it. Are the horses you're hoping to claim at Oaklawn going to Canterbury? Some of them will, Janine. More than likely, I had talked about this on Slack a couple weeks ago. The question came up, but it's they're going to probably go one of three places depending on the horse. It's either going to go to Canterbury, it's either going to go to Kentucky, or it's going to get shipped back east to the Mid-Atlantic, really depending on the horse that we get and what the horse tells us and what level it wants to run at. But my guess is if everything goes and the creek doesn't rise and all of those things and the world stays together, you're going to see us probably ship in 5 or 6 horses to Canterbury this year to start with. So we'll be coming in with a bigger string this year for sure. Alan, any news on any news? I think any news on offer you can't refuse from the farm? Yep, doing great. Actually, will come in next week or the week after. So you'll see offer you can. You're actually going to see almost all of the horses that are on the farm, all of the farms, because we have at a couple different farms. You're going to see them all come in off the farm here very, very soon. Next 2 weeks, almost everybody's coming in. So you'll start to see that very soon. Laura, the grad program is a program where somebody signs up to be a 20% owner in a horse, in a yearling, and they get monthly bills and, they're a full owner. They get listed as an owner. They're a licensed owner. Some of the folks on the call have stepped up to do that. It's obviously a much bigger financial commitment. And we call it a graduate program because it's people who start with us and then graduate up to that. Because obviously it's a much bigger financial, and it's not for everyone, right? Not everyone, because you're really, depending on the situation, you could be signing up for tens of thousands of dollars over the lifetime of a horse. So these are things that it isn't something that everybody does. So, but for some people, and we have a couple people, I think, let me look. I was just looking through. Mike Zeke is there. Jeff Musgrove is sort of the king of the graduate program. As long as his wife doesn't hear, he just adds one, every couple months. Every time we find one, he's signed up for it. So and in, like Jeff's case is a great example. You build your own silks. You have your own stable name. Which Jeff's got a really great stable name with, 6-pack, and he's got great silks too. If you haven't seen the silks yet that match that, it's really good. But that's what the grad program is. We actually do a session. We'll do a session probably sometime in, second quarter where we'll do a question and answer session on the graduate program so people can ask questions about how it works and what it is. We've got one recorded, but we'll do a fresh one. Yes. Janine, yes. The only thing I will tell you about, for those of you who weren't part of, we didn't do a very much claiming at Oaklawn last year. Oaklawn is a very unique place to claim, folks. So as we start claiming at at Oaklawn, understand it's not like claiming really anywhere else in the United States. So horses get claimed. If you keep the horse for 2 races, then you kept that horse for a long time, because it's very, very, everybody claims everything at Oaklawn. It's not uncommon to have 25, 30 way shakes on a horse. We're going to drop on 2 on the weekend, on Friday. We may not get either one of them, just because that's how the game gets played at Oaklawn. So unlike other situations, we cannot necessarily predict the horses at Oaklawn, where they will end up, or even how long they'll be with us. It's just part of the game when you play at Oaklawn. I won't be able to tell you, hey, this horse is definitely going to Canterbury. The only way you're going to know that at the end of the Oaklawn meet, or near the end of the Oaklawn meet. Holly asked about when we do the grad program, is that when we go through each yearling? Yes, same thing. We got to go through each yearling, talk about them in detail, and record that. So people come who are not necessarily thinking about being grads, but we cover the grad program as part of that. It's a 2-part program that we usually do when we do that. It's another one of those very popular ones we do. I would expect, given some of the excitement that we've gotten from people, I would expect our grad program to fill up again this year, and for us to sell out again. I mean, our yearlings sold very quickly this year, and I think you're going to see them sell again this year very, very quickly. So, although I will tell you, we could have a lot of them coming. If you look at some of the numbers, so we could have a whole bunch coming. Good. Any other questions cooking for folks? Give everybody a couple seconds. All right. Well, good. Well, this was a great event. I really like doing this, honestly. Aiden asked, when do you expect to have final breeding pairing set? I'll put words in George's mouth. I can tell you we're very, very close on most of them. Sometimes, for those of you who don't know, sometimes at the last minute you have to call an audible as well. A particular stallion that you thought you were going to breed to becomes unavailable, or there's something physically wrong, or timing just doesn't work, or all of these things can happen. So even if we announce a pairing, it doesn't mean that that's going to be the end result. Sometimes we've had to make last second variables or last second changes, audible calls, but I would expect that you're going to see all of the pairings really probably announced in the next couple weeks, 2 weeks. Is that a fair estimate, George, that we're probably pretty close to a couple weeks? Yeah, we're pretty close. What's that? I think he just shook his head. He didn't want to talk. He's happy in his monk look. I'll give you the mic here, George. I got to turn you on. Let's see.
Yeah. So I mean, we know to like 95% certainty on everybody who they're going to, unless something unexpected changes. Like, we had one mare that was probably going to go to Kentucky, and she came up with a foot issue that means she can't really travel, so we have to keep her local this year. So things like that crop up that, beyond just the mating plan aspect of it. But and like TK said, sometimes things happen at the last minute. There's no reason with a lot of these stallions that we need to sign anything or announce until we're sort of absolutely ready. We're not in danger of losing any of the options that we like for the horses. So rather than announce something and have people be excited about it, and then have something crop up and we have to change it, and then people had their heart set on the first thing or whatever, it's just sort of cleaner to wait until, until we know for more of a certainty that, that nothing is gonna change our decisions, hopefully.
Yeah, and one thing on that's another thing about what I like about the individual foal offering instead of the broodmare offering at some level is that you get to, what the pairing is, because we don't offer an individual foal offering until the broodmare has checked in foal. So it takes a big risk out of it for the club members, and two, what the pairing is at that point. It's not like a question of what pairing is happening this year. So exactly what you're getting. So cool. Super. Well, thank you, Mr. George, for the answer. And good. Well, thank you for coming tonight.